how we can be more productive by working in pairs. And the concept of pair working was really first came to the to the public with pair programming. The concept of pair programming means that two people that are developing, two developers that are developing code work together. Instead of working on one computer, they share a computer, and one person writes a code, the other person sits next to him, gives him some advice, checks what he's doing, and then the people switch. So this is pair programming, and people found that pair programming has many advantages. It's more fun, people are more productive, and there are less bugs in the code. And then what other people have done is try to see if they can also do content writing with pair programming. And particularly why I want to talk about it is because I recently started working with an assistant. Primarily it refers to delegate tasks to that assistant. But then I found later that actually I am much more productive when I work with that assistant. And I'm more productive because I feel that when I work alone, when I don't work in the office, when I work alone, without my team, I get quite easily distracted, and I'm sometimes doing things that I shouldn't be doing, and I sometimes don't focus on the right tasks. So even though I know what I should do, I don't really do what I should do. And when I have an assistant, and I explain what needs to be done, and I talk about it constantly about my work, I feel much more focused, much more conscious about what I'm working on. And I also have a person who's controlling me, and I also have a person who can help me in some of the tasks. And I only pay that assistant a small amount of money. It's like about a tenth of what I would earn, and I feel I'm almost twice as productive. Okay, let's say 30% more productive. So it really makes a lot of sense for me. So I think this is a concept that hasn't been really explored by many. I think it's a concept that's really valuable nowadays when there are more people working from home, and there's more computer jobs, mental jobs to be done on the computer. And it's just very easy, virtual, to work virtually with an assistant abroad in a low-wage country who helps you in working with you as a parent. So I would recommend it to almost anybody to work to find a pair and work together in a pair. What are your thoughts on that?
If I understand correctly, the assistant is in like other country and you just connect over Skype. How does this work?
Exactly. So my assistant, actually I got two assistants. One is well, actually, okay, so one is actually in Spain and the other one is in France, which are not exactly low-wage countries, but they are, starting their career, so they are have an hourly rate which is quite substantially below mine.
Okay.
Yes, and we do work virtually. So I'll connect via generally Hangouts or Skype, and then I share my screen with them, and sometimes they share their screen with me. And I will just start my work. First of all, I'll do daily plan, and they see all the tasks that I do. And I tell them, okay, these are the tasks we're going to focus on. And then I generally will start doing some tasks. And they just observe what I do. And I tell them, okay, here, like say I'm writing a letter. And I tell them, well, you check the letter, and they get access to the same document. So they're looking at my screen, but if we have some document, let's say an Excel file or a Word document, I'll share it with them, and they would be able to edit simultaneously.
Okay. So they are watching you, and then you sometimes give them some sort of task. So you know that they're not, I don't know, on Facebook while technically watching you or something. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because, okay, I think it's important that we have a constant conversation. I do think that actually this can make it's possible to make yourself more effective if you constantly have a conversation with yourself. So let's say you're at the work and you're constantly talking. Okay, now I'm gonna go to Google and I'm gonna type in this search word. Now I'm gonna look at the pages and I see page number 1. This not so interesting. Page number 2. So if you're talking about it, you have a more conscious thought, and this more conscious thought, I think, is much more effective than the subconscious thought, which many times would go astray, would go into a different direction. And especially with the internet, where you have many things that could potentially distract you.
So it's almost as if you were teaching them how to do your task, because
Exactly.
you're commenting live, and then maybe you can also outsource some of those tasks after they've seen how you do it. And it's known that when we're teaching someone else, we're learning the best, right?
Exactly. And you know, you need to know that these are assistants. So sometimes they also do certain tasks that I believe they can do themselves. They do them themselves. But by just me doing my work, they observing my work, me constantly talking about my work, they are learning what I'm doing. They feel it's interesting for them to just see exactly what I do. And there's really a lot of help for me as well, because one, I have more self-discipline, because I feel I cannot watch a video on politics while I'm doing my work, and they're watching me. Two, I feel that sometimes I get distracted. I might just be lost in my thoughts. That would not happen if I constantly talk about my work. And three, I have a clear task list of tasks that I should be doing. And I say, okay, this is the most important task. This is a task I don't like to do. Now, if I tell it to them, then for example, these are tasks, let's say calling certain people to ask for money. I don't like doing that. But if I tell them, look, this is a task I need to do, let me do it now, I'll do it. Well, if I don't have them working with me, observing me, or working in pair, many times I will not do that task. I'll just say, okay, let's do some other task. And then at the end of the day, I'm saying, okay, let's do it tomorrow. And I'll postpone the task again and again and again.
So you're basically getting some accountability component by declaring
Accountability.
it publicly, and they are watching you. So we have different behavior when we're watched. Also, even if we just are aware that there is a camera in the room or something like that.
Exactly.
Interesting. Actually, I noticed something opposite a little bit. Like, I was once recording a video in a studio in Warsaw, and there was the owner of the studio in the room. And I'm here, you know, recording my video. And it's a messy process to record a video. Like, you start saying something, then you go wrong, and then you have to start again or whatever. You know, it's like not something that I would necessarily want someone else to see how the sausage gets done in a way. So I was extra self-conscious because there was someone who I didn't know well, who was always like looking at me and listening live to what I was saying. So sometimes some people get helped by, you know, addressing an audience and then taking a video of that, because it's more personal, it's more authentic maybe when you have other people in the room who are listening. But when it's like a strange person and you're like, oh, they're observing me, I should just have, you know, this place for myself so that I can focus and I can actually deliver what I want to deliver, not always thinking about what is this guy thinking, that I'm, you know, crazy or something.
Okay, so this was negative. This was not productive for you.
Kind of.
Okay, I have had the situation when I had to record videos as well. I used other people for the video to become more authentic. So I was doing presentations, monologues, kind of like what we're doing right now. Basically, if I were to do this as a monologue, it would be boring. And not only boring because I am talking all the time, but also because I'm just, you know, talking to a camera, and you behave differently if you talk to a camera than if you talk to a real person. So now I'm talking to you, I'm talking to a real person, and I'm going to speak in a different way, I'm going to act in a different way, and that's generally more interesting.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between, you know, speaking to an actual person who wants to listen to that and who is your audience, versus someone who is not your audience and is just like probably thinking that you're crazy or something like that, you know. I don't know. So I think there are a lot of nuances when we bring other people into our workflow, and when we think about groups, because there's like group dynamics. You are subconsciously also thinking about what impression you're making on the other person, for example, or you need to be sort of alert because the other person can start talking to you at any point. So you don't necessarily go into this very deep flow when you forget about the world and the work is the only thing that exists for hours, you know. So I think that the flow does not go as deeply, especially in terms of creative tasks, when you have to be socially aware of what's going on because there's this other person who, you know.
Okay, so you're saying that there are certain tasks that might not benefit from having somebody sit next to you or sit virtually next to you.
Yeah, and I also think that there are two categories of tasks, the creative tasks, and probably you are better off not being pushed so much in terms of time. Having some space for the idea to kind of grow in your head, to play with it a little bit, you can do it in a shorter time and you will think that you're like more efficient, but the quality of the idea might be worse. So on the other hand, there are those simple tasks that are non-creative that just require to get done. And then it's so much better to get it done with someone else because you can talk and the task is kind of boring and the kind of task you don't like anyway. So you
Mm-hmm.
get some sort of positive reinforcement from the person.
Mm-hmm. About being more creative, I would think that generally I am more creative when I'm talking with somebody else. So while I'm talking with somebody else, like right now I'm talking to you, um, I'm come up with more ideas. Let's say I spend and that's kind of why we have this conversation. That's like why I like these conversations with you is because in 1 hour I could be thinking about a certain topic and I could be writing some content down for 1 hour, but it would be I would generally get many more ideas talking to you, and partially it's because your input to it, partially just because I say a certain thing, and even though you don't say anything new to me, you make me think more. So I I, I would generally say that in most cases I'm more creative working with somebody else. However, what you say is right. Um, the brain needs some downtime where it's not focusing on finding a solution to the problem, but when it's on downtime, and the subconscious would still be working in the background. But this time, it should be off work. It's much more productive to be off work, to just do play or sleep or take a walk, where you don't want to actually think. It's just like you just don't want to think. You don't do anything at all, but your subconscious will still continue working. You just get some ideas.
Mm-hmm.
So, so of course, the assistants would all, I would only be working with the assistants when I'm in front of my computer. So, and computer time is no good downtime.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just thinking about the fact that when I'm playing tennis, for example, it's such a good way to get really creative. Somehow, this activity maybe lowers the activity of my prefrontal cortex, like engages my prefrontal cortex a little bit, and my
Hmm.
subconscious can kind of shine through it. So maybe the pair programming for me would be to go and play tennis with someone else, so that I get really creative doing that. And then I'm also thinking about coaching because you were saying that in a conversation you get more creative, you have more insights. So that would happen during like a coaching, like the coach would ask you questions that you would probably normally not ask yourself, and then you would be like, that's a new idea, I didn't think about it before.
Okay. Yes, I agree. That's a thing I haven't thought about, but I do agree that, as you say, coaching, what does it mean? It means like people are just asking you questions, not necessarily, they don't necessarily know the answer, so just ask the right question, reflect to you what they feel about or what they think about your actions or your thoughts, and that can lead you to more insights. I agree, and I think that's also what can happen. So, um, so from what we said, for me, summarizing, there are many benefits to pair working. Obviously, into you potentially get done more. Um, there's accountability. So even if I mainly work on my task and I don't modify my task, and the other person is only an assistant, only an apprentice who doesn't have the skills that I need, but still the value of working with that person in pair are I get more accountability. I get more creative. I get more conscious, and I have this coaching effect. So, and that's all of those things I feel for myself. So I've been working with other people who are, I call them my assistants. They most of the time they will just sit there, observe what I do while we talk about it. So we constantly talk about it. They're kind of learning what I'm doing while I'm doing it. And then at some point in time, they give me feedback. And sometimes we work on things together. And
Mhm.
even though all of those things I would be able to do myself, and I would probably be able to do almost as fast if I wouldn't have their help, it just those benefits of having accountability, of having a conscious thought, and therefore less distraction, and being more creative, and having this coaching effect, all of that means that it's really worthwhile for me to spend this additional money on having an assistant working together with me.
Okay. And do you actually feel more tired after a day like this when you had to manage also the perception of the assistants and not to, I don't know, get them too bored with something, or like to be able to always explain what you're doing so that they actually get it? And does it burn like twice as much mental resources? How does it work?
Yes, but all the mental resources that I feel are burned additionally, I feel are used productively.
Mm.
So there's not that much explain that I have to do. Also because I mean I selected my assistants to be extremely intelligent. So the good thing is they might not know what I do, but they're very easily, just by doing it, they can quickly understand what I do without me explaining much. And I feel the main reason why I do feel a little bit more tired is because I actually do get more done. While otherwise, even though I do want to do work, I sometimes would do the easy tasks. I sometimes would watch video or the news. So I do have a lot of small breaks. I might be thinking about something. I might be taking a phone call. And so I do get these distractions and interruptions, and the not focused, concentrated work, because it's very difficult to have focused, concentrated work if you are not in a situation where your boss is behind you, or where you're in an exam situation and you just have to do the work as quickly as possible, especially if you are your own boss. And so um, I actually feel it's one of the main benefits is that you kind of get a replacement for the boss, because there's a benefit in having a boss, and the benefit in having a boss is that you have somebody who is controlling you, for you to make sure that you're more productive. When you don't have somebody, when you're at the top level, there's nobody above you, then it's very hard to get the self-discipline and to not get distracted and not have interruptions. And having somebody work with you, even though you pay them for their work, and they don't, and they're not really checking upon what you do. They don't have any authority on you, but just by having them work with you, you do feel, at least for me, I feel I'm working more concentrated, less distraction, less interruptions, and more self-discipline.
And it's interesting because when you explain what you're doing to them, you might actually understand it more yourself. Like
Sure.
sometimes people solve their problems by talking to another person, but without that person saying a word. Well, after they explain the whole thing, some new connections open up in the brain, and they're like, "Oh, I know the solution now." After they speak it, so some people actually think better when they talk about it rather than yeah
Hmm.
with their own heads. I
Hmm.
think actually extroverts more than introverts because they say many things just to kind of hear their thoughts to be able to think better.
Hmm. So now that I explained to you the benefits of pair working, of hiring an assistant, and then working with an assistant during the majority of the time that you spend on the computer, what do you think about it? Are you gonna do it? Why are you gonna do it? And why do you think you might resist doing it?
Um, I think it's an interesting idea for certain types of tasks. I
Hmm.
think it would be fun to show someone how I'm editing a video, for example. That would be fun because that's not an activity that's overly creative, but it's kind of mundane, but I like the way I do it as well. Like the outcome is so much nicer than the inputs initially. So that would even make me almost proud to like show it off, right? How this gets done. But other things, I'm not so sure. I would definitely go to a co-working space to sit next to people who are working so that the social norm in the place is that we just work here. And that already blocks the ideas of like, oh, let's watch cat videos on Facebook because everyone else is working, so you are also working. So I think there are ways to move kind of towards that without necessarily having to pay somebody for it or being monitored all the time. I had some experiences with working with my business partner actually like that. Like we were creating a series of videos by brainstorming ideas, writing the content, and recording the voiceover and so on. And it was like we got a lot done, but I do believe that the quality could have been better if we allowed like more time and maybe some breaks in between and maybe like 2 days of break even just to start thinking about those ideas, gather some insights, think about them throughout the day, and not force it to be delivered in such a short time frame. Because there is this research about creativity that says that if you have, let's say, 30 seconds to draw a creative clock, you will draw a very simple clock. But if you have, let's say, 12 minutes, you will get really creative. So creativity, in a way, is a function of time, and maybe having someone always look at you might be squashing you to like deliver results prematurely. I don't know. That's my thought.
All right. So you're saying there might be certain substitutes, like going to a co-working space, which would prevent you from watching cat videos. And there are certain tasks where you feel it might not make sense, right? Those tasks, and those tasks where it doesn't make sense are what kind of tasks?
The creative tasks when you want to come up with like an original content, or you're writing an offer and you want to put so many different components of that offer into your random access memory, right? To have them handy for that offer. Like if it's something that requires a lot of mental focus and is like this big task that's creative, that you need to take so many different factors into account while you write this offer, for example, then you want to have concentration, not necessarily other people, I think. And then maybe after you write it, then going through the offer with someone else, explaining to them why you did that, or asking them questions. What do they think about this offer? Where do they think that you could do a better job? So maybe we can also structure it like this. Like first you work it on it yourself, and then you kind of explain what you've done, and then you have a discussion about it. It's a little bit like with the brainstorming, like first everyone is giving ideas, and then we evaluate the ideas. Maybe that would help as well.
Okay. And have you thought about what kind of person you would want to have as your partner? Would you want to have a person who has the specific skills in what you work on, or would you have somebody who is below you or above you?
Yeah, it could be someone that I'm teaching. That could be a fun task, especially something like video editing. And if I taught this person, then maybe they could do the job for me at some point, which would liberate my time more. So
Well,
maybe that's an exciting
which
perspective.
brings me to brings us to a very interesting idea, which is while you are reaping the benefit of consciously thinking about your work, being less distracted and being less interrupted, and having more self-discipline by having your assistant work together with you while you are doing the work and the assistant is mainly observing. The assistant is learning your work, your job, and at some point, hopefully, we'll be able to almost do all the tasks that you are currently doing because she's doing it already. I mean, at first she's only observing, and then she can start doing something, and then at some point she will be able to do them.
Yeah, that's given that those tasks are quite simple and they don't require a lot of like many years of experience or like some deep in knowledge of the field or something like that. Because I don't think that everything can be learned in like 10 hours of watching someone do it, like heart surgery or something. and even copywriting, probably not, and maybe creating like new videos with insights, probably not as well. So
Hmm.
there are things that we can outsource, and there are things that we should do our own by ourselves. And then the highest value add activities are those that cannot be outsourced, right? So that's the thing. So I like to focus on those. So that's why also I don't see that much space for this kind of interaction with someone else in my workflow specifically, because I'm just like thinking about how to, improve the business on different levels or something, or like come up with a new video. So it's very mine, and I know this business very well, for example, and I know different marketing strategies and so on. So someone else could not necessarily replicate it. And in those situations, actually having someone who is equally good as you, but in other industry or has his own business might be greater for masterminding, for sharing ideas like, hey,
Hmm.
I'm doing this. What do you think about this? And he's saying, oh, I'm doing these other things. And oh, maybe we should do the same or something.
Hmm. Well, that's kind of how I came to this pair working. At first, I was trying, many years ago, I was trying to delegate tasks that I was doing to assistants. And I found it's very difficult because I was spending more time explaining the assistant how to do the task than I was gaining in liberating my schedule, because I felt a lot of these tasks did need the input of the experience and of the knowledge that I had. Now, so that's why I arrived then recently at just doing the tasks myself and just having the assistant observe what I do. And it's strange because the assistant is not really doing the task, but I'm fully doing the task. I'm pretty much doing everything in the task. The assistant generally only observes me and maybe gives some recommendation, maybe shares some feedback with me. But what I do see is that there are less mistakes. For example, less spelling mistakes when I write a certain thing, because the assistant would immediately correct it. But more importantly, I feel that I'm working more effective because I am more focused while I'm talking about my task with somebody, while there's social interaction with the other person. I'm more productive. And that's why I'm also getting less interrupted. There are less distractions, and I have more self-discipline. So for all of these reasons, not because that person, that assistant, is doing productive tasks, but just because she is making me more productive. That's why I feel it's really valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Even for those tasks which are very hard to outsource. Now, for those tasks which are hard to outsource, for somebody who's intelligent and who's observing me all the time doing the task, I do feel that he's um, getting to know those tasks really well, and she probably would be able to do those tasks to some extent by herself,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
little by
That's
little.
very, very good. I also have another idea sometimes that maybe investing in automating some tasks would be a good idea. So, for example, after I have a video, I want to send an email to like everyone on my list, and I have different lists and different servers and so on. And I used to do it in a way that was quite manual. And then I was like, I'm doing this every week, so maybe I should automate this. And I could automate this. I figured out the way how to automate this, and now
Sending
it's like
emails.
sending emails to like different lists that I acquired in different times,
Hmm.
and just yeah, one button and boom, and it's all automated, all done when it needs to be sent. So sometimes instead of even like doing those tasks or outsourcing those tasks, we can figure out a way to use either programming or AI or whatever to completely automate the task or even prevent the necessity of the task. For example, if you get customer requests, for your business, customers are asking questions. There are so many different ways to make sure that they don't ask those questions because the information on the website is very clear, or having a chatbot like we have right now that knows the answers to most of the questions and can be taught new responses. So then the chatbot takes, care of most of that, and it responds immediately, so the people don't have to wait 24 hours to get a response by email. So I think there are more ways to kind of try to get rid of the low value repetitive tasks that are not that creative.
Yes, I agree. So I guess there are two benefits of having an assistant or automation. One is to do less tasks and to focus on the tasks which cannot be outsourced, be it outsourced to an AI or be it outsourced to an assistant. And the second one is working on those tasks and being more effective, more productive while working on these tasks.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, pair working is more about the second. It's more about that I'm more effective in my work, even in these tasks which cannot be outsourced, cannot be delegated, neither to AI nor to an assistant. Just my own tasks that I have to work on. I'm more effective by having an assistant there. And it's not because I need the intellectual input of that assistant, because the assistant is far less knowledgeable, far less experienced and educated than me in those tasks. But still, even though that assistant does not have that specific knowledge for that task, it's possible for the assistant to be productive because she is making me more productive by, again, feeling more accountable, having more self-discipline, less interruptions, less distractions, meaning less looking at cat videos, just being focused on work, more self-discipline in doing those tasks that really need to get done, even those tasks that I don't want to do, just getting those tasks done by having somebody there who is kind of like a boss in the sense monitoring what I do, but not a boss. She doesn't have authority on me, but just because she's observing what I'm doing and giving her feedback, and some in some cases also helping me, but mostly giving her feedback and making it conscious, making a constant communication between that person makes it that I'm more focused and therefore I'm more productive.
And how did you explain to her role? Like, did you put up an ad saying, I need someone to watch how I work? How did that happen?
Yeah. I mean, basically, I said I'm looking for somebody to
Uh-huh.
pair work so that most of the work would be done where I just work and you basically um, sit on your computer, see what I do, and at some point would be giving your input, and we will be talking about that work.
I have
I know it's a bit strange because most people would say, well, if they're assistant, then they are supposed to do certain work so that I don't have to do the work. I'm saying, no. I will do the work. I'll still do the work. I basically want a boss who's looking at what I do and giving her feedback at what I do.
I have a great business idea for you. You could just do the YouTube live when you work and just like have an audience and just explain what you do to an audience. So that would be free. And there are people who make money when people watch them eat, for example. So there are literally like, I don't know, some really
Mm.
fat people who eat in a special way, and some people have a fetish or whatever to actually watch this kind of behavior. So there are a lot of different weird ideas for making money and people watching other people. So maybe, you
You're
know,
right. You're right. To a certain extent, it's almost like YouTube Live. It's almost like I just want accountability. I just want that I have more self-discipline by other people looking at my screen and knowing that that there's somebody else looking at it.
so you could basically have a show Ike Live that goes on
Hmm.
for 8 hours a day, and that could attract some attention, and
24.
then or 24, okay. And then you would have even more pressure to like not watch cat videos because it would be like, you know, you look at and it's like 200 people watching. Oops, I would better be productive.
Exactly. Now, that would be part of it. That would be the aspect of of having somebody monitor you, and I think that's an important aspect of pair working. But another aspect is the aspect of being more creative because you have somebody to discuss ideas with, even though the person is less knowledgeable. Just if she acts like a soundboard, um,
Hmm.
where I can refine my ideas. I think it's still helpful, and be more concentrated, not only by the person knowing that the person is observing you, but also by constantly talking about what you do. And of course, you could talk to yourself. So I could do YouTube live, so if somebody to monitor me, and I could constantly talk to myself. It just it just is weird, and generally just we just forget about doing that. Like actually I tried doing that. I tried to constantly talk to myself, but I always keep forgetting. And then after like 1 month, I feel like, oh shit, yeah, I told myself that I wanted to talk to myself, but actually I always keep forgetting that I need to talk to myself. So but when somebody's there working together with you, then you are in a constant communication with that person, and I'm more productive when I'm constantly communicating while I'm working about what I do.
Okay. Yeah, I think part of what scares me about this is the fact that I will be forced to like be way more productive. On some level, it gets resistance from my subconscious. Yeah, it's a funny thing.
As long as you're working, as long as you are online. I mean, I think I would love to be on the computer less time.
Hmm.
And I do feel that I'm not always productive when I'm at the computer.
Hmm.
And it's just almost like a habit that I go to the computer in the morning, and that except for eating, I'm pretty much at the computer the whole day. And I do feel that my brain gets less productive by being on the computer all the time. So now what I want to do is I want to make sure that when I'm at the computer, do very conscious work. So everything I do really is as productive as possible. Now then I do want to take downtime, but I don't want to take the downtime on the computer. I want to go out, just not think about work, have downtime. That's important. But when I'm at the computer, I want to be as productive as possible. And so having an assistant and doing the pair working where somebody's monitoring what I do, making sure that I don't watch cat videos, and making sure that I don't get distracted, that I don't have interruptions, and also making sure that there's a constant that I'm constantly working by talking to the person, by communicating, thereby constantly saying exactly to that person what I'm doing, that makes it more conscious, and therefore for me much more productive.
But don't you also think that it might be stopping you from going to like a deep flow? Because I'm thinking
No.
about, like, for example, when I have some programming challenge to
Uh-huh.
solve, I just go start concentrating on it, and then like X minutes later, it's solved, and I don't even know how it happened. Like I go in such a deep flow that one thing leads to another. It's intuitive. I've done a lot of these things in the past. I have some scripts to look at. I copy, I paste, I change, I try, whatever, and then it's done. And like if I was to explain each step, I would be thrown off this flow, of this trance. So I think even like after it happens, I don't even like remember exactly how I achieved the results sometimes. It's such a deep flow, and so many things were happening one after the other, somehow guided by my subconscious, trying different things, whatever. And then it worked, and I don't even know how it happened. So I don't know. What kind of tasks are you
All right.
using
Okay. So
for this?
yeah, but now for me it would be interesting to see what is the actual work process and what is the thought process while you're solving this complex problem.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for me, I see that there are for write. I don't generally write code, but I write complex documents, and I do think it's very related. So complex documents where I need to talk about different things, and I have a certain idea in my mind. I don't know how to put it on paper. So there are two processes. The first process is the down process, where I might take a walk and not think about anything, but subconsciously come up with ideas while I walk. Or I might actually think about what I want to say in the document. And the other process is the conscious process, where I would generally say, okay, do it very consciously. I would do, first of all, what is it that I want to say? What's the objective? What are the main points? What I brainstorm. What are the main points? Then I say, okay, so these are the main points. Then I do the order. Then I do the sub points. So it is a very conscious process, and
Mm-hmm.
in this conscious process, I'm much more productive if I share this conscious process while I'm doing this with another person. So I would say, okay, now the objective of writing this document is this, and the main points that we should talk about are these points. And so let's think about what are the subpoints for this point. And it would be mainly me, because the other person is just an assistant who doesn't know about the subject. But even though she doesn't know about the subject, she's still able to help me by basically being a listener to what I say about what needs to be done. So being able to work consciously. Now, that's how I work.
Yeah.
How do you explain? Can you tell me how you the work process and the thought process when you come to the solution of the programming problem?
Yeah, so there's probably a part of the solution that I already know because I've done it many times. I know, save something to the database or something, right? But there are some parts that I haven't done before. So I'm asking myself certain questions, I'm Googling certain things, I'm looking at other people's code, I'm getting some solutions, some ideas, I'm tweaking, I'm adding it to mine, I'm seeing how it looks, and I'm changing whatever. So it's quite a chaotic process where I go through
Hmm.
this. But I'm just reminded about something interesting that in Google, for example, they have this interview if they want to hire a new programmer. And during that interview, you're writing code on the blackboard, actually a whiteboard, and you have to comment exactly what you're writing and why and how your thought process goes. And it's extremely difficult for programmers, unless they're trained to do that, to actually comment because they just do it. Like, why? Because that's how they do it, right? So I guess I could be trained to step back a little bit and be like, okay, now we have this data from here, we need to save it to the database. So let's connect the database and save it to the database. And then I would implement that. And then let's do this. And then let's write this. I could probably be taught how to do this and do this successfully. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Do you want to make a summary about what we talked about?
Well, we talked about pair working, working with an
Hmm.
assistant, having someone who is watching you, having someone who is preventing you from watching cut videos, and allowing you to maybe improve your mental processes by verbalizing those processes,
Hmm.
providing accountability, potentially be able to learn the task themselves and then do it without you,
Hmm.
and forcing you to be always focused while you are with them, because
Hmm.
that's another kind of flow. I think when we are observed by other person, when we are in this one-on-one interaction, our brain works much better than normally. We're not relaxed, we are engaged. So I think that's the engaged type of social flow that you get into, and it can help you to get tasks done, especially if maybe there are certain types of tasks, and maybe if you are an extrovert, even better than if you're an introvert. So there are some nuances. What do you think?
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, I think that's a great summary.